Hello, my name is Ruth Refutation, and the claim that I'm responding to is that purchasing pets from pet stores and breeders encourages breeders to produce more and more. First, I'd like to state that the speaker only supports this claim once or twice throughout. They talk more about pet adoption and why buying is bad versus how the breeder produces more and more animals. So for the first claim they made was that adopting a pet will ultimately save a life. The way I responded to this is that the claim is only stated, but her evidence does not show how. Instead, she begins to talk about how the breeders will profit, how the animals' companionship is with humans, and the animals that are neutered. There is no cited proof to support her claims. She only cites one page at the very end when she speaks about the risk of defections in animals that are bred, but that is not part of one of her three claims. I found a website called Positively, which is a dog training website that tells us that many actual breeders will provide genetic health testing to make sure that your dog does not carry any inherited genetic problems. And then in a bit I will talk about the difference between an actual breeder and the owners of puppy mills. Her secondary claim was that when pet owners adopt from shelters, they're slowing down puppy and kitten breeding. I feel like the supporting information for this one fit a lot better with her first claim versus adopting a pet. The supporting information will fit a lot better with her first claim that adopting a pet will save a lot of lives, because she talks about homeless and euthanized animals. She also constantly associates breeders with puppy mills, but this is not always the case. Buying from breeders is not always bad, however, there is a lot of research that must go into it. Christine from Petville tells us that there is various red flags to recognize puppy mills, apart from good breeders. For example, puppy mills list themselves as rescue shelters, but they're actually selling in large amounts. Also, they do not have a veterinarian that looks after their pets. Their ads are passed out as flyers versus actual ads. They always have puppies available, and actual rescue shelter does not have this. And they meet you in homes or in public places, and they deliver the babies before 8 weeks old. Positively also tells us that there is benefits to buying from breeders. For example, you get to see the puppy's moms and the environment they grow up in. You can mold your puppy with positive training, and you can also find the breed that best fits your family. For her last claim, she said that many people who purchase pets may feel a certain breed best fits their family needs, or subscribe to misinformation about shelters and shelter animals. However, she claims that people are misinformed about buying. However, in a Petville article by Xavier Santiago, we learned that there is many breeders and shelters who get to know you and find the best fit for your family. Some even offer older dogs for rehoming or to retired people who can't house train their dogs anymore. Many good breeders even suggest adoption if they do not believe that their breeds are a good fit for you. Also, Jennifer Costella tells us about her experiences buying from a breeder. She says that she researched a lot of different breeders and got to know them until she found the right one and decided to buy. The person who I'm responding to also claims that people are making the problem bigger and that the number of animals in shelters are increasing. However, people like Jennifer Costella are not the problem, because she actually looks after her dogs like a lot of people do. She doesn't just abandon her dogs or drop them off at pounds. Thank you.
All right, I like that you go right after the assumption that the advocate is making that breeding is automatically problematic, and that you suggest that there are in fact breeders that are not only responsible but might create a better situation for families and their pets than you would get from, like I said, the animal shelter. The equivocation of breeders with puppy farms or puppy mills, for instance, is one of the things that I think you could develop a little bit more. There wasn't any data that I recall from the advocate talking about how many animals come from these so-called puppy mills versus coming from some other source. So if you had some information that talked about how dog breeders are very careful about where their animals go, like you mentioned at one point that they sometimes do matching with the families, I think that that's a good point. One of the things that I know is true about people who want particular breeds of animals is that they are doing exactly what you said. They have to find an animal that matches their family's needs. You know, some families are very active, and so they need an animal that can keep up with them. And some families, on the other hand, they don't have the time or the energy to take a Dalmatian or a Golden Retriever out for a run 3 times a day, so they need some kind of dog that's going to be a little bit more sedate, or they need animals that are compatible with children, or they need animals that are going to be okay to be indoors or something along those lines. And the notion that particular breeds have those kinds of tendencies would suggest that there is a value to having an animal from a particular breed. So I think that you need to kind of make that argument a little bit more, because that's a good generic argument on the subject here. There are a couple of good presses that you make on some of the information. I like the fact that you dug out some information that talked about how some of these breeders are careful to do things, and you kind of gave us a list of criteria about how to recognize something from a puppy farm. My guess is that most people aren't buying from a puppy farm. It's not like they're walking down the alley and some guy says, "Hey, come here. You want a Doberman?" That kind of stuff. It's more likely that the pet stores purchase the animals from these farms, and then that's where people find them. And so some of those hints may not be useful. But then there's a question about, are the pet stores responsible? And I think that's a place that you could develop a little bit of information there. You need to project your voice a little bit, and you need to talk about the adequacy of the advocate's reasoning. I think you kind of suggest that there's a lot of hasty generalization going on here, but you need to be more specific in making those claims. All right, thank you.